Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Yes, I feed off of your suffering. I am your host for tonight, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitters, on News Nerds Need at the Twitters, also CB Caps on Instagram. Indeed. And the sound effects come from the man who can answer this question.
Is Brooklyn in the house? Without a doubt.
Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
I was this close to cutting a clip from a Black Moon track that was sampled for the Crooklyn Dodger song.
Oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. You should probably do that, I would say. Not with us tonight is one PCN_Dirt, and you can find at PCN_Dirt on Twitter. You can also find him at popculturenetwork.com and popculturenet on Twitter. And also not with us tonight is the Osiris that is ish one, Tim DOGG98, who you can find out that on Twitter. You can also find him on CB Chron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account rather. The Click Nation on Twitter, that's DKLIQNATION, and theclicknation.com, and also, of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. And you can also find this here podcast on the Google Play and Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, where you can also find GameStar's new album. You should go check it out. It's damn good. And also the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page, where you can't find the new Gangstar album. And of course, being that, you can also find this podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
Flip. And all that jazz. But we are going to get into this week's new releases. Starting off with, we got a couple of new number ones this week. We're going to start off on the X corner of the universe with New Mutants number 1.
Right, so this is the latest number 1 issue out of the Dawn of X relaunch of the X titles coming out of House of X and Powers of 10.
Indeed,
and,
this week.
Right, and we have the continuing adventures of the first young class of mutants at the Xavier School, but now they are on their own adventure, and they're looking to recruit one of their former members who is off-world and bring him back to Krakoa and all the cult-like stuff that's happening there.
I suspect, though, given the nature of the Krakoan tech, they're probably not going to get them. But however, they'll bridge, they'll bridge where he is and Krakoa, like they have been at other places. I suspect.
Right. Well, that's actually one part of their plan, because one means their means of transport, let's say, of getting to Shi'ar space, and the character we were referring to earlier is Cannonball. And right. For those of you who were around when Hickman was running the Avengers and he recruited Cannonball onto the Avengers
and Sunspot,
Cannonball found himself in a relationship with Smasher, the latest Smasher, who is a member of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. So Cannonball finds himself living in Shi'ar space as the spouse of the latest female Smasher. So this group of new mutants are kind of are acclimating to Krakoa, and they figure out, hey, let's go get Sam, and hijinks ensue.
Yep, as they tend to do, which is the beautiful thing about New Mutants. Like if you are a long-term fan of the New Mutants, this is what tends to happen to them. It's like, hey, they're just off on their day and they get into hijinks, either around the X Mansion or just out and about, as they tended to do in their own way. And now, thanks to their familiar ties, you might say, sort of, they have a free ride into space. Which I do love. We talked about this earlier. There was the whole synergy in the X universe nowadays, and things kind of, the continuity is kind of tightened up tightly, and this is kind of one of the areas where you can kind of see that. And the next book we'll get to, definitely, expands on that definitely more, because like I said, they need to go into space. So being that they have just so happen to have ties to someone with a spaceship, a crew with a spaceship, they happen to hitch a ride with Corsair and the Starjammers, who, as we saw in X-Men #1, was here for a minute and then was on his way out the door, which I think they did actually mention in there. And then he's now leaving. Him and his crew is now leaving in this issue. So
right.
So I'm just looking at your notes, and there's definitely, I'm glad we both saw that same thing in the art.
Oh, the Rod Rice, who is the artist on this book, is definitely evoking some Bill Sienkiewicz.
It's a great effect.
And it's and it's obviously meant as an homage. Rice definitely has his own style, but there's a few homages to Sienkiewicz in the book, so it's a pretty nice effect. And it's just a fun story. There's lots of great banter in this, and they find themselves, the New Mutants, this group of New Mutants. I'm sorry?
I said the not so New Mutants, as I've kind of called them.
Right. And what's funny is that they've incorporated a number of characters from other eras of the Xavier School. We have the Massachusetts Academy represented, as well as the new X-Men represented.
I am really so glad that they didn't go with the newer kids, the kids that Rosenberg loved to death. It wasn't just him, but like Rockslide.
Well, yeah, I was about to say that's like that was before even Jason Aaron got there. Yeah, that's the new X-Men group that I was referring to. So, but Mondo was there. So
yeah, which that one I did not know too much. I didn't know anything about him, to be totally honest. So I was like, okay, so he was in there somewhere at a time that I didn't know too much about.
Right. I only remember him vaguely. So
him and that other guy also, whose name is escaping me, with the thing over his mouth.
Oh, Chamber. But yeah, that's the Massachusetts Academy. That's Generation X.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't read Gen X, so I don't know too much about that.
But, yeah, but just to quickly wrap on this, I thought this was full of great little character moments, and it's kind of nice to see the band back together without too much craziness going on in between. There isn't as much interpersonal stuff, which is kind of cool, but more of that is going to develop as the story goes, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, not yet. There was other, speaking back to the continuity thing. There was something that was a very little thing that got brought up in the midst of the story that I believe either was mentioned in either Excalibur or Marauders. I can't remember which one. I'll probably been both. Who knows? But there was they mentioned coffee being a thing that they wasn't sure was on the island or not. But and I know within one of those books it did get mentioned, and now that solution has presented itself in this book. It's a little thing, but I was like, okay, that was they didn't have to do that, but the fact that they did was kind of amusing. So, but overall, a pretty good, and I don't want to say classic start to New Mutants, but it's
solid. It's a solid start. It's a great launch point for this book, and a solid potential click of the week for me.
Yeah, and it definitely like there's one or two little points that I'm sure they're going to come back to in the that got brought up in the beginning, or at least one that got brought up. And I might be mixing books at this point with the next book we're talking about. But there's definitely at least one point that that gets brought up between the character Mondo and Cypher that I'm sure is going to get investigated more fully once they get back to Earth, I assume, or in the midst of a story.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's there might be some stuff amiss.
Right.
With Koa.
Right. So, but we'll find that out at some point, I guess. So now I guess we can go to the next book in the X-Verse, and that is X-Force #1. So where there is, where all the mutants are gathered, there needs to be a Skunkworks team to
what did you call it? Skunkworks?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can say Black Ops. Black Ops works, but
yeah, there's other. Yeah, exactly. There's there's several ways of describing this type of team. Wet works is another. Wet work is another.
But in this issue, we don't necessarily. Well, we get to see the catalyst for them coming together, not necessarily them coming together, which is the thing we've kind of seen in a couple of X books. Like we've seen like shades of the team or the catalyst for the team coming together, but we don't necessarily see the team as one.
Right.
Which is not a new thing. So it is what it is for that. But in this case,
yeah, we see the skeleton forming. We see the outline forming really.
Right, and of course, a couple of classic X-Force members, in various states of duress, I guess you could say, at the start of this. But this is another one where, hey, there's some things that's been introduced, including actually going back to probably Hoxpox. I would imagine. I think some of that stuff kind of comes back to Hoxpox because we knew at some point, with Krakoa being a sovereign nation full of mutants, there was going to be some folks who who didn't care too much for that idea, and therefore, they will end up having some enemies, and that kind of is a thing that crops up in the midst of this book. In addition to, I don't want to say it's a callback, but basically, something that came out of Marauders #1, kind of basically ends here, or I guess it's in the middle of, because if I remember the end of Marauders, they ended up basically the Marauders mission at that time ends in this book, or at least the first mission in this one ends in this book.
Yeah, it appears so. Yeah, it definitely.
I think but I think at the end of Marauders, they ended up getting their new ship and whatnot. If I remember correctly, I have to go back and see. So you can say some of this is happening in the midst of Marauders.
Right. So just to deal with the setup in this book, the first thing that you'll see is the cover. It's a beautiful kind of classic X-Men look by Dustin Weaver, and you jump into something that doesn't look very classic X-Men in terms of the art style. It's art by Joshua Cassara, but it quickly turns into something that's a little bit more pleasing to the eye as the pages pass. So don't get turned off by the first couple of pages that are kind of the X-Men's answer to the Court of Owls. That was the first thing that I thought of when I saw this big table with people with these kind of white face masks on. They're not the Jabberwockies. They are, it definitely looked more like a Court of Owls type table. But that setup, that opening few sets of pages, the framing sequence for the book sets up where this story goes, and where the story goes is really kind of something that, as you mentioned, we knew that this was going to be on the horizon very soon. This is Benjamin Percy, who I've joked about having sold me on this book and the new Wolverine book at New York Comic Con.
Right.
And what he does is reminds us that it isn't all peace and love on Krakoa. and there are forces around the world who are not happy with the establishment of a powerful mutant nation, and some of those forces move into action very quickly, and they basically take the mutants on Krakoa surprisingly by surprise.
Yeah.
It was very surprising to me, despite the fact that they did have some defenses in place, and those defenses were described by data sheets, at the beginning of the story. It was very surprising still to see this particular group successfully infiltrate Krakoa, and that's a mild spoiler because that's really the point of this opening issue of the story.
Right. And the other thing about that is, like, not only were defenses in place, and I don't know if you could say they got slipped by, because they were literally seeing them come in. Like, pretty much a bunch of people were actually looking at them coming in at the time that that the infiltration was happening. So it wasn't like they were completely caught unaware, but they were just like, which brings up a kind of a weird thing as far as Xavier's thought patterns in this.
Well, they weren't. Yeah, what I was gonna say is they were. It seemed like they were duped because they thought something else was happening when in fact they were being, that an assault team was coming in. So there's obvious, and it's related to the opening framing sequence. So that's, and more will be explained in the next issue, but it's suffice it to say that this was a very surprising opening issue to this book, and I think that's what you were referring to. As we get to the last cliffhanger page.
Yeah. So here is the thing about that, without giving away what exactly happens. Given the state of mutants and their, well, I guess it's kind of spoiler, their regenerative powers, powers, I guess, or states of being. I don't know. Usually when something such as what happens on the cliffhanger page would be more shocking than it is now. It still kind of isn't, to a point.
Right.
But at the same time, like, well, we know, there's a very quick resolution to this. So it's not like it's something that's going to be lasting or permanent, unless something, ends up coming up and saying, hey, well, okay, so, I doubt if it will, because, why set up all the other stuff where this can happen to have, something be permanent in a state where it's usually not now. I mean, it's now not.
Mm-hmm.
So that part in itself was like, okay, I guess it still had an effect, just not the same effect that it would have classically.
But still, it was a pretty effective storytelling. It was just a storytelling point.
Oh, sure, yeah, and obviously, it's going to lend itself to where, we know what the mutants' capabilities have. Their detractors may not know fully, and I guess that's the one other thing that's that'll may or may not come to bear. But like, so we kind of know, but they don't know. It's just that, like, okay, that's what you chose to do on that one.
So yeah, like, just to wrap up the discussion, this is a pretty effective issue. Another potential click of the week for myself.
I would say the same, yeah, because you could definitely know. It's like, yeah, you see everything coming into place on that part, because you knew something like this was going to happen, like I said earlier, and there's going to be an answer to it. There's also something else that happens in the midst of the book that I don't know if is going to get dealt with or not, because there was a point where we see how the wounded get treated.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that part, without giving, I mean, it's not really much to say about it, but I don't know if that part's going to come up in some sort of way. It seemed like it might, because they wouldn't have put it out there like that. But Well, I guess we'll see. So from there, where do you want to go, sir?
Legion of Superheroes, #1.
Okay, sure. We'll hop the fence over to the distinguished competition. So yeah, Legion of Superheroes #1. If you have been keeping up with certain parts of DC, you will know that Superboy, John Kent, not to be confused with Connor, who's in another book, has elected to go into the future to be on the Legion of Superheroes team. I think he had already said his goodbyes, definitely in Lois Lane, but in the other books, to his parents. And I assume the other part was in one of the Superman books, I'm guessing. And now, the actual transportation has happened in this book. And this book is basically him kind of getting acclimated to his new surroundings and being not freaked out at first until he found out about the encapsulation of that Earth, which didn't sit right to him, which for obvious reasons, if you know anything about the Superman family,
right,
and this relationship with bottom cities,
right. So for those of you who have any sort of relationship with previous versions of the Legion of Superheroes, this is an update on the original creation of the Legion of Superheroes, with Superboy being Superman when he was younger, going into the future and helping to form the Legion. So this is a variation on that theme,
right?
and
This is
is
Legion.
I'm sorry.
I said, yeah, right, because this is already a fully formed Legion.
Right. So, but at the end of the day, this is Superboy going to be with the Legion full time, and what we have is a future story where some effects from the past, our current day, have found their way into the possession of the Legion in the future, and there are some criminal elements apparently that are looking to lay claim to it. For fans of the Legion, you will be able to spot several old favorites. Some characters have been changed. Some familiar characters have been changed. Some of the front running, some of the characters who were at the forefront of previous versions of the Legion have changed in certain regards. I kind of liked one thing that artist Ryan Sook put in, or maybe the letterist put in, I'm not sure which, when they did they had the rough, like, hologram equivalents of name tags.
Yes.
They called them Frichtman tags, and Superboy's tag basically listed his powers as super everything. I kind of got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I couldn't. Well, the way I was reading it, I couldn't really tell what was on his tag, but
yeah, it's super everything.
Yeah.
So, but
and him responding to it,
right.
Yeah. So I know some of this, I think it was kind of alluded to earlier, was taken care of in other books. Like, I don't know if it was that Millennium book, that's Legion of Superheroes Millennium book. I don't know if that was a part of this or not. Have you been reading any of that stuff that kind of touched upon?
I don't recall much of it.
Right.
I think the first one.
Right. Because like I said, there has been a couple of books that have definitely touched upon, at the very least, John coming to the future specifically, if not the Legion being in the current era to recruit him.
Right. That part I got.
Right. So, it doesn't necessarily help or hurt, I don't think, to read that stuff before you read this. But for someone like me, who, has a slight masochism streak, you might want to, and I didn't. But you can pretty much get what you need out of this issue.
Right, you can definitely jump in. It does help to be a little familiar with just the setup of what the Legion of Superheroes is. I kind of like the new Wildfire design. He's an old favorite of mine. But but at the end of the day, this is not a bad start to a series that has always had a fans have had a soft spot for the Legion forever, but it never has been able to sustain for extended periods of time. So let's hope that this particular relaunch gains some traction and has some staying power.
Yeah, given who's writing it, I suspect they won't give up on it anytime soon, as they would other books.
We'll see.
So, I'm just putting that out there. Let's be honest. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah, the only thing for me about this book, it was like, okay, I did not know too much about, like I said, so didn't know too much about the Legion, with the exception of probably a couple of because there was a version that showed up on Justice League, and maybe some stuff here and there in the past that I may have gone across, but it's like this whole setup is kind of still weird.
Like I said, it's really just an updated version of the very original, the very first formation, the very first appearance of the Legion. So
sure, but if you don't know too much about that, then that's still
right.
But,
it's Bendis's version of it. So
yeah, exactly. That was the point I was kind of sort of trying to get to.
All right.
So
What's next?
Well, I think we've exhausted all of the number ones.
Maybe the number ones that we read in common.
Right. But,
so feel free to jump to something else. We could talk about some of the stuff that kind of tied in some of the Marvel continuity.
So let's do this. Let's start with Dr. Doom.
All right.
And I think you know where we'll go from there.
No, but okay.
Okay. So Dr. Doom number 2. This is that book that's ran by the Catch and Halt and Catch Fire showrunner person dude, not the white supremacist. Don't know why I feel like I need to keep saying that. But so the weird thing about this, so at the end of the first issue, we see when Victor Von Doom surrendered himself to the authorities after something happened that he had nothing to do with. At the same time, you could kind of see what's going to happen with that based on that happening. It's like, well, this doesn't seem like something that was going to stick, and surely enough, it doesn't in the course of this issue, which lends me to questions like, well, wait, why would you let yourself be taken if you're just going to escape? Which he does in this issue, because he's being framed for something he didn't do, so of course he has to clear his name. I assume, at least let me phrase that. I assume that was his point of escaping.
That was a very odd sequence because it has to deal with a future traveler.
Yes,
who we have become accustomed to seeing.
He also felt
hanging out with Doom.
Right, but he also felt like he knew it was coming, which he did. Because if you remember back to last issue, he was like, "Oh, you're back here again," because it's almost like he knew that was going to happen.
Right. So Doom escapes custody, but finds himself on the run and is located by a character who you may not have realized has any sort of connection with Dr. Doom at all.
Right. As a matter of fact, this whole book has a couple of connections to Dr. Doom, which you don't, unless you've been reading for a good while. Because yes, one, as a matter of fact, if you think about it, it also kind of makes sense in the relationship to current Excalibur, because this character also shows up there. And I believe I want to almost say that it gets alluded to this issue, or them being in this issue might have possibly gotten alluded to in that book. Because I think she does say something about, hey, she was going to be on Earth for a reason, or she was going to go to Earth for a reason. I may be wrong about that and just projecting something. I don't know. But regardless, Morgan Le Fay shows up, and if you are not aware, her past dealings with Doom have also been in relation to Iron Man, because there are classic 50th issues of Iron Man where Tony and Dr. Doom end up, or at least one or two of them end up with them going back to Avalon or wherever Morgan Le Fay is and battling her for whatever odd reason. Also, Doctor Doom has been a one-time ally of Morgan Le Fay, possibly in relation to that also. So while it is weird to see her here, if you don't know that, yeah, and you've been keeping up with recent events, it kind of sort of makes sense if you know Doom's background also, because he's dealt with mystic, he has mystical powers, and therefore, of course he's going to run afoul of someone else with power, which means also Doctor Strange, who happens to be there, who happened to be in a lot of places this week, actually. Or not a lot of places, but a couple of places this week, given his guests in a couple other books that I think we both read.
Yeah,
So,
he gets around. He's like Tupac.
yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but another character kind of pops in, kind of out of nowhere, because he is a top person available, and
Right.
uh,
That was actually was the weird one. I was like, that's who they pulled in for this, huh?
But there's yet another character that appears at the very end of the issue who's pulling off a long range shot.
Yeah, and
Who's not the character that that we expect to see do this, who is in another book, I guess, taking pot shots at good old Victor.
yes, I think we'll definitely go to that book after this. But yeah, so yeah, apparently something exists. Yeah, this character who shows up, definitely is capable of making such a shot, and he's definitely been around lately. Which also brings the question of, again, when is this happening? One, and obviously, judging by the cliffhanger page and the page after that, I'm like, well, clearly this is not the end of what's going on, but just going to shift into another place where another character that keeps that may, or if that, at least if that last image page denotes anything, another character is going to come in with who we've seen a whole lot of lately in another sense, without giving too much away. But yeah, let's just say, Doom's got some things going on.
Right.
Apparently he's a John Lennon fan.
Right. That was a very kind of strange interlude, character-based interlude between Morgan Le Fay and Doom.
Right.
It was a little out of left field, but at the same time, this is a Doctor Doom limited series after all, so we're going to get some character-based or character-driven story points during this limited series.
Right. And there's also something else that gets brought up, which I would like to believe is something else out of continuity. Before, I would just go ahead and say it, spoiler alert, Blue Marvel shows up as being the guy that Agent 70 alluded to, being the top available.
Sure.
He shows up and he's teaching a class that talks about a black hole, which is the thing that is going on, which is a thing that happened that caused an incident in the first book, in the first issue. But he talks about another type of black hole, which is a white hole, which I'm speculating, may or may not have something to do with the events of Silver Surfer Black. That's the way I'm taking it. I don't know if it actually is or not, because the way it was being described is like, and what we know of what happened at the end of Silver Surfer Black, that it feels like they coincide. I could be totally wrong.
We'll see.
So, and that may or may not have anything to do with anything outside of a continuity thing for Marvel, and I doubt that will play. That may or may not play anything going forward in this book. But yeah, so that's Doctor Doom number 2. And now we will go to the other book where young Victor shows his face. Amazing Spider-Man number, was it 33?
Mm-hmm. It's 33.
No, well, no, it's not unless, okay. Boom. For some strange reason, I had 3 on there. Also, so actually, I wanted to bring up this point real quick because I know this happens a couple of times this week. So there was somebody else. There's something that somebody shows up in the course of Doctor Doom #2, who is basically one of those characters who we haven't seen in a while, and in some cases, you may not have seen at all, because I had to look up this character to see who it was because I didn't know who it was, and apparently it was from a limited series that I knew about, just never read. Before whatever happens near the end of the book, and that happens a couple of times during this week. So we will get to Amazing Spider-Man #3, where also alluding to something that Agent 70 says, we have one Miguel O'Hara still running around the present. Surprisingly, he fell basically, and fell hard, given that his Spidey powers gave it out for him. But he seemed to be doing all right as he was running out away from the scene of the accident. So he's still running around trying to find Peter. Meanwhile, Peter's off somewhere else dealing with who he thought to be Silver Sable and the Foreigner in another matter, which also plays into some things that that Dr. Doom's book also brought up, and also has been brought up in other places, and that being relations of Symkaria and Latveria's border war situation.
Right. That's something that's been going on for a little while now, especially since Doom came back.
Right.
But what we find out in this issue is that the whole deal that Teresa Parker has been on the trail of has been not exactly. Well, what we find is that the Foreigner wasn't exactly up to no good. He was actually up to some good.
Right. But
And
basically a wild goose chase.
I'm sorry?
That's what for Teresa it was somewhat of a wild goose chase.
Oh, I mean, what she was what she was doing was following what she thought was a lead on people stealing Shield Shield property, which is exactly what it was. But unfortunately, for what it turns out to be is that it was being stolen for a quote unquote good cause, and we find out what Silver Sable's current status is, and essentially this book has some more setup for the upcoming 2099 crossover event dealing with one of Peter Parker's classmates at ESU, dealing with the future. And we also get some foreshadowing about what is going to happen with what's going to happen with the other side of that border dispute that you were referring to earlier between Symkaria and Latveria.
Mm-hmm. But what I was saying was, because I think Teresa specifically said, it was like, well, she had no reason for her to be there, because she was definitely hunting out what you said, but she was actually looking for a specific person,
right,
who was directly in,
right, and that specific person is behind a lot of this,
right. So, but
kind of playing both sides of the deal, as it were, because that actually comes up during the story.
Exactly. So, we definitely get a little bit more of what's going on with the Symkaria Latveria thing, and I'm assuming, I don't know if that's going to be. I assume that's going to be a Spider-Man or some sort of event coming up. That's probably speculation, because it's definitely, like you said, it's been something that's been brewing for a good minute now. So
the 2099 stuff is definitely going to be it's going to be something that spins out of the Spidey books, and we'll have a couple of, I believe, one shots.
Yes, a bunch of them. And matter of fact, you can see in the back of the book all the one shots that that 2099 stuff is going to touch upon. So yeah, and of course, just like in the Dr. Doom book, there's another person that shows up who unlike the person that shows up in the in Dr. Doom's book, is getting prepared to do a similar thing to the very same person. But this is a person also who, again, is definitely an obscure character.
Definitely, this is a deep cut. I was like, who?
Exactly.
I was like, wait a second.
Once again, I had to look up this person. I'm like, wait, do I remember? And then, which was funny because when I looked up the person, the picture they use is the picture from this issue when he shows up.
That's funny. Somebody just updated the wiki.
Yeah, basically. But they didn't update with the story because obviously it just happened. But so that was kind of funny. So yeah, Marvel's been doing some, as they have been the last couple of years, been pulling out some deep cuts. So I think that's pretty much that. Like, so, the only other thing is like what you were saying about that person, that's Peter's classmate, and the thing he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
There was part of that. That was part of it that felt like obviously Minority Report, but also shades of Civil War 2.
Sure.
Because of the tech that gets mentioned. And I suspect, as you said, that's going to run into the whole 2099 thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's no reason for them to bring up some kind of seeing the future tech,
exactly,
without that tying directly into this upcoming 2099 story.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. As I said in my notes, is like Peter has a villain in the making in his classmate / presentation mate, which I guess if you thought about it in the last issue, you could kind of see it, but you don't really know for sure. You just saw somebody who's kind of really overzealous about Peter's tech,
right?
Or former tech, I guess you should say. So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. Do you want to go to Miles, or you got another book you want to toss out?
No, we can do that. That's fine.
Okay. Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 12, which has nothing to do with either of the books we just talked about, but hey, Spider synergy. There you go. So in a move that is, one could say, straight out of the Into the Spider-Verse movie, or Miles' past back in the Ultimate Universe. Once again, he ends up fighting his uncle in Prowler suit.
Right.
Until it gets interrupted by another deep cut.
Well, this deep cut I recognized at least.
Well, yeah, definitely. But
this is definitely straight out of old Spidey lore.
True. As I call him, the Proto Juggernaut, which is not far off the mark because of that character. Man Mountain. What is it? Man Mountain or Martin Man? Man Mountain.
Mountain.
Marco. Say that 5 times fast. It shows up. As somewhat of an enforcer after the Prowler's hit goes bad because of Miles, obviously. So which ends up putting Miles' Uncle Davis, Uncle Aaron. I don't know why I said Davis, but but basically puts Miles and his uncle on the run, like 16 blocks or
no, this is the Warriors.
That is also in my notes. Midnight Run, John Wick, the third chapter 3, 16 blocks, the Warriors. That basically kind of style of runs, because even at the end of the book, you see a map of where they are and where they end up having to get to. Which I still haven't seen 16 blocks, but it's sitting over there and on my shelf for some reason.
I mean, this is like I thought directly of the Warriors because they have to get from Boogie Down all the way down to Brooklyn, but they don't necessarily have to go all the way down to Coney Island. But there's a couple of things that I found to be interesting about this particular story arc. One, and I mentioned this in our discussion of the last issue. This is Saladin Ahmed doing a very classic Peter Parker trope, which is something is wrong on his family side, or he has to get to something on his family side, and everything is gone off the rails in his superhero side. Also another old Spidey trope, which is running out of web fluid. So that's something that was teased in the last issue and is front and center in this issue. We also get, as you mentioned, the echoes of the Spideyverse. And last but not least, we get a shout out to the Beastie Boys. So this next issue is interesting, and the tease for the next issue involves a character we have seen in this title before, and it's curious to see if to see how the relationship may have changed since then, because if I recall, they left on relatively amicable terms. Go to the tease, the cover tease for the next issue, and I'm not really spoiling too much. It's probably in the solicits and it's on the cover for the next issue, but it's a character that we've seen in the Miles book early on.
And I'm trying to figure out who you're talking about. Oh,
yeah, you just scroll down to the last page.
Yeah, I was like, wait, did I miss something? Or
no, the last the after the map.
Oh, I don't think I went past. Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, we've seen that character, so we know that they've developed at least they've had a interaction before. So we'll see how that plays out in the next issue.
Right. So yeah. So there you go. Next.
What's next?
Actually, I pulled up the wrong book. That was what's wrong with me. Let's go Black Cat number 6. Actually.
Sure. We get to rapid fire after this because we got a lot of books to go through. I think we have some more in common, but we just have plenty of books to get through this week.
Yeah, this continues to be a fun book, but this one is a couple of things is going on in this particular issue. You know, Felicia's trying to get a little downtown time, so she goes out on a date with none other than, again, slightly bit of a pull here, Batroc the Leader.
This is not that deep a cut, though.
Well, I mean, in relation to a lot of other things, but I mean, come on, when's the last time you've seen him? I mean, unless he's shown up in Cap recently. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we've seen him very recently, but he's not that deep a cut, especially if you're up on Captain America villains. So yeah, we're talking about Batroc the Leaper.
Which I say in my notes is it's still kind of funny. Like, granted, Batroc is a character that was made back in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, or something around about that. But if you remember Captain America, Winter Soldier, was it, or Civil War? Which one it was?
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Winter Soldier. So the character shows up there with a similarly named person acting, quote unquote,
right, in real life, right? The real life actor,
right? But they, which makes sense because this person happened to be similarly named, but they also have similar talents.
Sure.
Sort of. So that part still kind of is funny to me. But regardless, Felicia and Batroc go out on a date and they have a relatively good time, which ends in a good time. But at the same time, the Black Fox finds himself with some company and holds his own for a good bit until the end of the thing, which I'm sitting here like, when that first happened, it's like, well, clearly this is going to be something that goes over quick. Because I mean, Black Fox is he's a shrewd dude, and he's got talent, but at the same time, that looks like, and I'm assuming that was the Hand, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know, because at the end of the day, how this B story kind of plays out is, it keeps the book tied into the overall story arc of the Fox running a series of heists so that they can break into the Thieves Guild vault. And what ends up happening here is the story basically ties that back in. This B plot ties that back in. I don't know if they're just nondescript ninjas or if they're the Hand. It's hard to tell.
Right. So yeah. So basically, yeah. Because that's why I was saying, I was like, well, wait, I don't know. Maybe I was just thinking like that should have been over a little bit quicker if it indeed was the Hand. But at the same time, like the Hand has been.
That also wasn't the point of their. You know what I mean? That wasn't the point of their chase, because it was capture, not kill. So.
Well, yeah, I know, but like I said, it's like you see something like that, but at the same time, you would think that would have been an easier capture for them than not. But at the same time, like I said, Black Fox is not, an easy person to catch up to, as proven in this book. So, plus you got to move the storyline some kind of way. So it wasn't that was just a kind of thing I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
But overall, this was a pretty, to continue to see, like I said earlier, a fun book. It was
It was entertaining. The art on the book was good. It's by a guest artist, Mike Dowling. We're used to seeing Travel Foreman on this book, so this was a fill-in book, and it was filled in very nicely.
Indeed. Yeah, and see, it's kind of one of those where the art was not noticeably distracting.
Right.
So it still flows with how the book the art normally goes, and this is a good thing. So that's cool. And like I said, we'll see the consequences of what happens at the end of that book in the next issue as something gets found out. I guess we can now go to the rapid fire.
Spinning it up.
So yeah, take it away.
All righty. Let me know, because it's a long list. Let me know if we have overlapping books.
There's basically like two.
All righty. Batman.
No, it's not. Never mind. Just go.
Yeah. Batman number 82. We are rapidly approaching the end of Tom King's run on the Batman title. Batman and Catwoman continue their team up versus Bane, but Thomas Wayne appears to be the big bad in this book. Crescent and I,
which I might be wrong about this, given maybe I'm thinking about the wrong universe, but given something that happens in another book you're going to talk about, I'm like, when is this going on? But I think I may be mixing something up and not that. But anyway, go ahead.
That's okay. Crescent and Io number 1. This book has the origin of Crescent's powers. It's nothing out of the ordinary, but the telling and the execution of the story is still fun. Daredevil number 13. Daredevil gets some insight and training from Elektra. Wilson Fisk actually exhibits a little of the character work that was done by Vincent D'Onofrio in the Netflix series. The next issue promises a heart-to-heart between Daredevil and Detective Cole North, the new character introduced in Zdarsky's run. Fantastic Four number 16. Did you read this?
Yes.
All right. The FF basically figure out that they are definitely not welcome on the planet they intended to explore. And they actually find out that they accidentally caused a superpower arms race.
More Reed's fault.
Yeah, when Reed was initially doing the exploration or the planning part for the this exploration trip, the original exploration trip that caused their powers, caused the formation of the Fantastic Four.
Which means that there's probably, at the very least, one thing should probably come out of it, because there's a couple of things going on with the book. So the team is separated. Ben is in the Low Town, which is basically where the freaks and the monsters are, and that's going to as what tends to happen in like this, like there's a high society and then there's a low society, and one is about to run up on the other.
Right. One of the secrets of the difference between the high and the low society is a result of that superpowers arms race.
Exactly. Which almost kind of reminds me of
the Inhumans.
Huh?
I was about to say the Inhumans.
Yes, exactly. And that and yes, basically that, because I was about to say the Deviants, and because I think and that whole lot with with them and the Eternals. But yeah, similar thing. Anyway,
sure.
It was a good book.
Alrighty, next up, Ghost Rider number 2. Did you read this?
I did.
All right. Well, basically, it's Johnny Blaze trying to send escaped souls back to hell, and Danny Ketch unfortunately gets in the way.
Yeah. Which also brings up to something that happens in Avengers, or what could have happened in Avengers. As we know, Johnny Blaze shows up there. If he had the power to do what he did to Danny, why didn't he do that to Robbie?
It's a good question. I think it boils down to the type of Ghost Riders they are, because I think Robbie was a different type.
I guess, but I thought, yeah, sure, yeah, I guess. I don't know. There's definitely something about the Ghost Riders, the different Ghost Riders, that sets them apart some kind of way. So yeah,
right. I think that's I think, I mean, it's obviously that's either stuff for a no prize or stuff for future stories to be told.
Yeah, I think that might be something that's going to get explained, I would hope. If not, then I don't know. We'll figure something out. Next up,
Immortal Hulk number 26. I'm not going to spoil too much. I know that you were attempting to finish reading this. This is a potential click of the week for me. Bruce Banner gets a little aggressive. And there's a direct follow-up to the events of the War of the Realms, as well as some of the events in another currently published Marvel team book. Alrighty?
Go for it.
Oh, okay. No, it's just that you went out. I guess you went on mute for a second. Magnificent Miss Marvel number 9. I think you may have read this.
I did.
So some more Marvel continuity coming together with Iron Man and Doctor Strange. And Mr. Hyde is there as someone just to cause trouble.
Again, this is not, granted, for somebody like me, it's not a really deep cut, but then again, we haven't seen Mr. Hyde all that often lately, so that was kind of amusing. Because Doctor Strange and Mr. Hyde, as in Dr. Jekyll, and but sure, I'm sure that was potential. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but whatever, it works.
Right.
And I guess we kind of see shades of Doctor Strange's next volume.
Exactly, Surgeon Supreme. That's exactly what I was referring to as kind of tying Marvel continuity together, because he wouldn't be a candidate for surgery if he didn't have the use of his hands back.
Mm-hmm. So, and as you know, as folks may know,
a candidate for performing surgery, that is.
Correct. Yeah. So Kamala's dad has been sick for the last a few issues with a disease that they, up until I guess this one, did not know the causes or did not know much about, and we come to find out that the because of Kamala's family's latent inhuman genes, and that one cloud from a few years back that gave us Miss Marvel in the first place, this disease has basically come out of that, which I thought was a pretty interesting way to handle that. So, we found out that Doctor Strange is on the case and may or may not be able to do something about it. We'll see, I guess, in the coming issues.
Just as an aside, I am given a renewed hope that they will not gloss over the Terrigen Mists story, or at least adapt it, at least in a streamlined form for the Miss Marvel Disney Plus series. They are still, they're continuing to rely on the inhuman nature of Miss Marvel's powers.
Yeah, hopefully they'll do right by that.
And that's me, hoping beyond hope that they find it in their hearts to reboot at least the royal family of the Inhumans, and not redo the whole ABC show. Next up, Undiscovered Country number 1. So this is a book published by Image. This is written by Scott Snyder and Charles Soule, with art by Giuseppe Camuncoli. This did not go as I expected, but it was still interesting. The premise of the story is that the United States has closed itself off from the world for 30 years because of certain events, and the opening issue is about it allowing outsiders to come in for the first time, but what they find is not what they expect, and it's definitely not what I expected. I'm willing to give it another issue to see where it goes.
Not to be confused with the Star Trek movie.
Right. And that's it for me.
Wait, did you not read Justice League?
I did, but I was gonna do it when we talked about Dirt, because he had one book.
Okay.
You just do it now?
No, we'll wait. So for me, Young Justice number 10. So this continues to be a fun issue. We get Jenny Hex's, well, we don't necessarily get Jenny Hex's backstory, but we do get a little bit more background on her. We do get a little bit more about what's in her chest, the chest that she's the trunk that she's toting around.
There you go.
There we go.
There's some clarity that you need.
Yeah, clean that up just a little bit, because she's a teenager, folks, for goodness sake. So yeah, and because they've been, up until now, they've been playing that in a Pulp Fiction style and other movies, where there's a trope where, hey, there's something in there that seems to be very, very valuable, but we don't know necessarily what it is. Well, now we know. Exactly. Well, now we know what's in there, and she's got a box full of wonderful toys that, which makes sense. So, if you did not know, she is the great granddaughter of Jonah Hex, who has spent some time in the past as a bounty hunter, hero, etc., and has seen some things and have teamed up with some superheroes. So therefore, has collected a bunch of things that folks of his era probably shouldn't have on them, and has he's collected in his in his travels and team up with current day superheroes. And that got willed to Jenny after an explanation during the course of this issue, and she gets to use it to some effect, which I suppose is not going to be the first thing. Like we've seen a couple of them, because like she had basically like say Adam Strange's ray guns, like, but she's been using those anyway. And there's a few other things, like it looks like there might be an H dial in there. I'm not even sure if that's the case, but there's a bunch of stuff from that I'm sure that'll come from various parts of the DC universe that that'll get some use. But they're still in the other Earth until the end of this issue, and we will see where they turn up, which seems to be back on their Earth, where I guess shouldn't be a surprise. A guest star, if you looked at the cover, shows themselves at the end of the book, and not necessarily in the fashion that the cover would suggest. I'll put it that way, or at least not yet. But given who's writing the book and who co-created that character, wasn't that big of a surprise that this character wasn't going to show up at some point in said book. Wonder Twins number 9. So after a mission where the twins back up Superman and Batman, they have to deal with I don't know if we want to call it a frenemy, I guess we want to call it, of Jaina's, who escaped from prison, that they try to help them out in finding her dad. But at the same time, a Doomsday Protocol thing that her dad has some hand in, or I should say, it wasn't even a Doomsday Protocol, but a Doomsday Protocol that she has a hand with, and a project that her father had a hand in doing, kind of comes back to the forefront in a kind of a haphazard way. Folks, if you plan on selling your PCs, make sure you wipe the drive. That's all I'm going to say. And it was a Commodore 64, which was a delight for me, because I love my Commodore 64 back in the day. Could have been a 128, but it looks like a 664. Regardless, next up, Web of Black Widow number 3. So where you find one Black Widow, you will definitely more than likely find another. And I'm not just talking about the antagonist of this miniseries. One, Yelena Belova, ends up getting recruited for a mission, which apparently wasn't needed, but Nat's kind of a careful person, so she wanted her there just for some clarity, for some clarification. But they go about to try to catch this other fake person, for a fake widow that is using Nat's face, and that didn't happen. But next issue, apparently another one of Nat's exes is going to show up by the end cover. So that's going to be
Purple Arrows.
Yeah, indeed. And I believe, let's see, is that it? That is it, actually. So now we can go to Clicks of the Week.
Clicks of the Week.
And we already have one from
we have 2.
Yes, you're right. We do have 2, actually. From our missing partners. One of which would be the aforementioned Justice League number 35, which I also read, and I believe Agent_70 also read.
Yes.
Is Dirt's click of the week. And
right. And did you talk about it real quick?
No, I did not.
Okay, well, you can give yours and then I'll read off Turt's.
Actually, I don't remember. Oh yeah, so basically I just said that it's a multiversal crisis and everyone's invited. Earth 19 is the first one to get the boot.
Yes.
Perpetua, which is what my confusion from earlier when you were talking about Batman or whatever book that was. It's not
like when that happens, right?
Right. Perpetua has a cooldown apparently in video games terms, and matter of fact, that gets mentioned in the course of the book, sorta, but not necessarily the video game part about it, which I found. And now Kendra's finally feeling sorry for herself after botching the whole mission, and puts her and her, I guess, son in jeopardy. And now, the Empire, as they say, is going to do more striking back in the form of Lex Luthor, going into the next issue.
Right. But some of the things that PCN underscore Dirt has to say, I echo his sentiments. He hesitates to call Justice League number 35 his click of the week because the series has kept running hot and cold to him. Myself as well. The path that has gotten us to this point has been pretty convoluted and tiresome, and
True.
that almost had him give up on it, same as me. But in this issue, this is exactly what the type of story he's been hoping for over the past 4 years. Something he thought Doomsday Clock was going to bring us, but instead, Justice League number 35 brought us the multiverse, ripped it apart, destroyed an Elseworlds universe, which is what Roddykat was just referring to, in an homage to Crisis on Infinite Earths number 1. And it had him bouncing in his seat like a little baby boy.
Because Dirt hates Elseworlds.
And finally, we got an explanation of why this is happening and how the villains are going to build an army by destroying and rebuilding the multiverse over and over. This is superhero sci-fi like he grew up on. And as an added bonus, DC made the cover into a special edition transparent acetate flip open thing without raising the cover price. I guess I'll find out when I pick up my books this weekend.
Yeah, so there was part of that I would say I would have a comment about, but I won't. But it's not that big of a deal. It's not a thing either way, but it's like, okay, sure, some things don't always have to be a certain way, but it is what it is. So yeah, but it was definitely so I agree with the fact that this book has had some up and downs, and it's been kind of hard to read at times.
Yes.
But there's definitely been some issues. It's like, holy smack, like some things happen and we get some much needed explanation or exposition. And just like, all right, this just raises the stakes even more. So, and it's definitely not the level of Justice League like 22 or something like that, but it's definitely it's basically up there, I would say. So, and as far as Doomsday Clock, we don't even know if it's going to make the end of this year.
We'll see. It is solicited for December.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's that. And from Tim, not much of a surprise, but also a pretty decent book this week. Young Justice number 10. He didn't really say too much about it, I don't think. But like I said, it continues to be a fun book. So I've been enjoying it despite Bendis writing it. So you got your click or no?
I'm pretty sure I've got mine. I've got a couple of good candidates. I've got the 2 new Dawn of X books that came out this week. I definitely enjoyed them.
Sure.
But I'm going to go with a book that definitely entertained me, definitely had a couple of really good moments in it, and that was Immortal Hulk number 26.
Okay. Yeah, being that it's a favorite book of ours around these parts, or for the most of us anyway. I don't know. Actually, is Tim reading the book? I don't even know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. But regardless, at least half of the panel, especially us two, more specifically,
right,
written up in this book.
Right. I know that PCN underscore Dirt is behind, but he has been reading it.
Yes.
And
so,
you will like when you get to the end of this book. Some stuff that I mentioned in my review of it, and stuff that we had mentioned over the course of this episode of the show. We have seen Marvel really tighten up the continuity belt over the last week or two. Now that Hawk's Pox has wrapped, and now that we're deep into Dawn of X, so this issue really brought up some recent continuity and tied it into the events of Immortal Hulk, and that was pretty entertaining.
if it's about what I think about and what I'm about to mention, I was going to say that, we've mentioned this in the past, like at some point Amadeus Cho was going to show up, and this is the issue where he finally, when he does, and he even has some things to say.
Right.
See, at least I did get better, but that's in the beginning of the book, so that's
no,
not
right, exactly. No, what I'm referring to is that near the very end.
sure. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this book. That being said, so for
Mhm.
myself, it definitely was a pretty decent book and some really good fun stuff. Hmm. I don't know. I might actually go with New Mutants #1. Actually,
Nice.
like
Good.
Young
That was a
Justice
candidate for me.
Yeah. And I'm not even the biggest X fan, but like I definitely read a good bit of New Mutants coming up, and like I said, this kind of evokes that in a very good way. The only thing is missing is Warlock, but then again, he's kind of there in spirit. So
Sure.
so yeah, that's pretty much that. And now we get to an ad read, please.
Our first ad read of the night is for My Comic Shop. Today's podcast is sponsored by My Comic Shop. Go to cspn.us and click on the Keep Our Podcast free link at the top of the page. From there, click on the My Comic Shop banner and order from a vast selection of new releases, back issues, vintage classics, graphic novels, and more to be delivered right to your door. If you do not have a local comic book store, then you can order your comics from My Comic Shop online. My Comic Shop through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we
Let's get to the news.
Roddykat just wants to read the line.
And as we start off, as we do every week, with cinematic news, guess what, folks? Felicity's back, or she will be, because Stephen Amell announces Emily Bett Rickards' return to the Arrowverse, because she had left the show at some time ago, I guess, and she will be back for the finale of Arrow. So good news for Felicity fans like myself.
Okay. Alrighty, CW Superman actor Tyler Hoechlin has confirmed that CW is developing the Superman and Lois show via an Instagram post that promises a secret story.
Oh God, don't do it again. So yes, and that secret story has something to do with the original Superman movie, or something, or at least they are alluding to something that may have had something to do with the original Superman story from movie from back in '78 with Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. So we will see what comes out of that. On the Batman front, Robert Pattinson learns Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in training photo, which basically is saying that, hey, he just started doing his training, and why wasn't he doing that all the time when he got the part?
Heaven forbid, right?
Right, because when I saw the story, it was like he just started training. I'm like, okay, and I get it. Like they start 6 months out, before filming or whatever the case may be. I'm like, why wasn't he doing that when he got the part? Maybe he was. I don't know. Regardless, hey, he just.
I was about to say some actors do it for longer. So
exactly, and some folks are already naturally training for something, depending on the person. So it's not like. Again, he could have been already. He just this aspect of it. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
He's starting to become Batman. And speaking of,
right. So next up, Andy Serkis. I thought he was already confirmed to play Alfred Pennyworth.
He wasn't. He was in talks up until this happened.
Okay.
But he's not the only one that has been confirmed to be part of it.
And apparently, Colin Farrell, of all people,
somebody else too,
been confirmed for Penguin in Matt Reeves' Batman.
And I want to say Matthew McConaughey may also have a part, but
yes, that's my understanding. He may be playing Harvey Dent.
That's a weird choice for that character.
All right. I
know, right? So yeah, there we go. So some, I want to say heavy hitters, but that's not even the right word for that. Colin Farrell and McConaughey seemed like they should have been doing buddy movies together for some reasons.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. They just seem similar and whatever. Anyway, so yeah, Marvel's Falcon and the Winter Soldier has started filming, according to a behind-the-scenes photo. The BTSs, if you will.
Not the boy band.
No. And apparently either the post has been removed from Instagram or something happened. But I do remember
the Disney assassins have
I know, right?
out online.
Quite possibly, but basically the image was a set photo of the two actors' chairs, characters' chairs, basically. So there's like they had one for Winter Soldier and one for Falcon.
That's funny.
On set, if I remember correctly.
That's funny.
So,
alrighty,
not much to it, but yeah, apparently the Disney assassins are hard at work. Next up,
according to the Hollywood Reporter, Ant-Man 3 is reportedly in development with Peyton Reed, who also directed the first two installments, back to direct the third movie.
Feels like a water is wet moment, but at the same time, hey, it wasn't
right. It wasn't exactly. It wasn't introduced or put onto the slate at San Diego or D23. So this still does qualify as news.
Sure, and it looks like it's going to reportedly is going to follow the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Thor and Love and Thunder movies, according to the Hollywood Reporter.
There you go.
And in some other movie news, Eternal Stars set photo reveals new time period. So star Lauren Ridloff, who will play Makari, the MCU's first deaf superhero. Was he deaf? That was the speedster, correct?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't Makari the speedster?
Yes.
Yeah. And I didn't know, was he deaf?
I did not know that.
I didn't either. But either way, took a photo at Marvel Studios office.
I was about to say that must make sign language. He's got to really slow down for that one, but go on.
Well, or he can speed read. I don't know, speed read lips or something. Who knows? This goes, and this is not sliding anything. It's just like we're just whatever. Don't one way or the other. This gave fans the first look at one of the outfits they will see her wear when the Eternals premieres in late. So that's actually a gender bend because
Makari was male.
Yeah. So okay. Cool. As you can see in the you see a picture of her in one of the costumes, and looks like it says here a vision board behind her features the label Babylon 800 BC, which could be the time period that Eternals may take place, or at the very least visit, if anything.
Yep.
So cool. Next.
In related Eternals news, while they were filming on set on a Canary Island, they had to evacuate because they found an old, apparently still active bomb from World War II.
Yeah. So, which Angelina Jolie and Richard Madden were on the set and had to be taken away. Like, I guess they were the only two filming around that time.
Right.
So, luckily, they didn't go off and nothing happened.
Right.
So, cool. Man, that's a lot of Hobbs and Shaw commercials on this site, which, yeah, that just came out on Blu-ray and digital. Plug, I guess. I don't even know why I did that. But some awesome news that we found out in the last week or so is that, and I'll take these next two actually, that there was a teaser on Twitter. In fact, I think this came out while we were recording and I didn't get a chance to pull it. But a Into the Spider-Verse sequel was being teased on Twitter. And we come to find out that indeed that is going to be a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse release sequel. And we have a release date, that being April 8th, 2022. So, and a lot of people on Twitter, quite naturally was very hyped for that. As you can see here, if you're watching the video, that came from the Spider-Verse Twitter account, with a picture of Miles's symbol with the comment of the release date and hashtag Spider-Verse and a little video that went along with it, or a little clip, which doesn't really give away nothing because obviously at this point they probably don't. They may or may not have that much, given the time that it takes to do that movie. But welcome regardless. So we just got another 3 years to wait for it.
We'll see what kind of music Miles is listening to then. All right, so you got that. Japanese Spider-Man has been confirmed for Spider-Verse 2.
If you have not watched these 78 Spider-Man, well, excuse me, let me rephrase that. The 78 Japanese Spider-Man, you should really go check that out. It's something special out there. So I think it's out there on YouTube. You can just look it up. But yeah, so Japanese Spider-Man, along with his mech that he rolled around in, will be in Spider-Verse 2. And my only question is, are they going to get the US 70 Spider-Man? Because that's what I really want to know. The old Nicholas Hammond version.
Ha! With the one web shooter.
Exactly. With the big rope for the web shooter and him, climbing the side or climbing the wall with a big rope like he was in gym class.
Goodness gracious.
Fun times. I love that show. Shout out to Chip Fields, by the way, who's on that show also. Anyway, next up. First look, Ming-Na Wen's Star Wars assassin from The Mandalorian. So, Ming-Na Wen, who we know from as Agent May from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and various other movies that she has done, Mulan being one of them. By the way, I'm just going to remind people of my Mulan Delirium joke. That's what I'm saying. Who's going to play a sharpshooter, not a Mandalorian, called Fennec Shand. And apparently I'm going to take this next one also because apparently she had a hand in developing the character's look. So that's always good. And she's playing an antagonistic bounty, according to reports, who will oppose Pedro Pascal's masked mercenary as he takes up a contract in the outer rim of the galaxy. So, and it says here that Wen personally had a hand in developing her Star Wars character's look, taking inspiration from the character's foxy namesake, that being Phoenix, which is another name for Fox. So cool. I always love to see Ming-Na Wen and stuff, especially now that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going off the air.
Mm-hmm.
Cool beans. Next
up. So I know that you're not up on Watchmen,
Yep.
but on the third episode of what were you saying under your breath?
I was just going to mention I did see a picture from the last episode that had to do with Gene Smart, who is pictured here, and a
sex toy.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is part of the story. So what's funny about Watchmen, the HBO show, the first two episodes definitely skirted around its relation to the Watchmen graphic novel, the 12-issue miniseries by Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore. The third episode really brought the comic book ties into much more prominence. They clarified a lot of the ties from characters that we were previously familiar with, and the Syfy article that Roddykat procured lists every last Watchmen Easter egg and comic book reference in episode 3 of the HBO Watchmen show.
So those complaining about how much it divulges away from it, there you go. You got some Easter eggs. Be happy.
It's not it doesn't divulge away from anything, to be honest, because it's not necessarily a sequel per se, but you can't help but see that it's really in that vein. It's a follow-up. So if you are familiar with the 12-issue miniseries, then buckle up and see what Lindelof and friends have in store for this story coming up.
Sure, but
I've enjoyed this.
Right, but they were saying that it wasn't going to be directly the comic.
It's not a direct sequel, but it's definitely something that happens in the aftermath of the events of the comic.
Sure, and people
in the future.
Right, and there have been people out there complaining that it's not, directly tied to the comic book, which
all it needed was time to develop, and obviously people don't necessarily want to wait, so it took up to episode 3 to really establish the ties.
Right. See, there are patience, folks, that works in movies, that works in comic books, that works in a lot of things. Patience, develop it. Anywho, next up, The Flash kills off major reoccurring character. This is a spoiler for a recent episode. It's okay because this character is going to be all right. I have faith in that. And they killed off basically the character of Gypsy, who was played by Jessica Camacho. It's okay because she is on the CBS show All Rise, along with Simone Missick. So, like I said, she'll be fine, I think, hopefully. But that show's actually pretty good. So, yeah, but apparently instead of just writing her off, they killed her off for some strange reason. I don't understand that. Why they do that, but hey, it is what it is, and which leaves the character of Cisco in a state because they were in love, and also leaves him in a state because her father, played by one Danny Trejo, probably going to feel some sort of way about it, given depending on how it happened.
Okay,
judging by some stuff that I just saw. I mean, so yeah, there you go. Next,
alrighty. Characters on Riverdale named Cheryl and Tony suited up as Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy for the Halloween Riverdale episode.
So yeah, Cheryl Blossom. Everybody knows Cheryl Blossom from the Archie comics, or some people do anyway. She kind of came on a little later, regardless. And I'm not sure who the other person is, but yeah. So apparently, Halloween happened as we said last week, and there was some Halloween episodes, including Cardi B, who dressed up as Poison Ivy. His costume is absolute perfection, according to this article. So I think I saw this on the Twitters. So if you're watching the video, you can see a picture from Cardi B's Twitter account with her costume. And apparently there's a video that, according to this article, maybe not safe for work. I guess that she did on her Instagram page that I guess was kind of behind the scenes of putting it together, I assume.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. Big zone. Next up.
Forget the Red Hood. Supernatural's Jensen Ackles becomes Batman for Halloween. So apparently, Jensen Ackles, who previously had voiced the Red Hood in the Batman Under the Red Hood animated film,
and also dressed as Red Hood last Halloween, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so he basically dressed up as Batman this time around.
Mm-hmm. Or at some point within the past year, I can't remember if it was last Halloween or at some point in the past year. He definitely did it. He did dress up as a Red Hood. But yeah, so now he's did a Batman thing, which if you're watching the video, you can see the fruits of his labor. It's not a bad suit, I guess. I'm not sure what version is. Well, I guess you can take this from a couple of different versions, but hey, you can do that. Anyway, you also know Jensen Ackles from Supernatural, which is apparently still going on 15 seasons later. That's kind of ridiculous. Critical Role, The Legend of Vox Machina series heads to Amazon. So this is, if you are aware of the Dungeons and Dragons play Critical Role that happens actually I think it might be going on right now if I'm not mistaken, with a bunch of voice actors playing D&D. It's a great series if you're into that. They have started a comic book which is already going on, but there also is going to be an animated series that is going to Amazon, that's what this is about. And then I'm not sure if it's going to be voiced by the talents that are doing the actual play. But apparently it's going to be a total of 24 episodes, and it's going to be on Prime Video. No word as to it says the series will star. So yes, so the series will actually star the characters as the characters they're playing, or excuse me, the voice actors as the characters they're playing. So cool for them. And it looks like they are also executive producers, which makes sense. So, and I think this is started, if I'm not mistaken, this says here, it started as a Kickstarter, this animated series. So good for them. Cool. Next.
So we're moving into comic book news.
We are.
All right. So let's pull up some transition. And yes, from I think this was last week, Keanu Reeves' Constantine just became canon in the DC universe because an image of Keanu Reeves' portrayal of Constantine appeared in a Constantine comic from last week.
Yes. I have still not seen Constantine, the movie. And I know there are some
Neither have I.
There are some people that are very big fans of that, but that's probably because they like Keanu and and not necessarily so much the
source material.
Yeah. And it is what it is. I guess you got to come to it some kind of way, but that's So 2005 Constantine movie, Keanu Reeves. That's the thing. It is definitely on DC Universe. I do know that for a fact. So I guess one of these days I'm gonna get around to watching it. Next up, speaking of Constantine, there's a first look, which I guess since it came out from last week, then just don't have to worry about it now because the book is out. But if you are still on the shelf about checking that book out, there's some preview pages out there for you. Have at it. It's a mature reader's book, so go with that with what you will. Next up,
in Tom King's follow-up to his Batman run, he's got a book he's teaming up with Mitch Gerads on called Strange Adventures, which features Adam Strange and a mystery co-star.
And I believe they are also making yes, this is going to be it's going to come out next year by the group in question, and I believe they're making a show out of that book. I believe we talked about that last week. I'm fairly certain. So whether it's about this particular thing or just, I think it's going to be an anthology series, if I'm not mistaken. We did talk about it. So yeah, there you go. Synergy, there, folks. It's there. Black Adam finally shuts up the most dangerous new villain, and this is a spoiler alert for the Year of the Villain Black Adam book, which came out probably 2 weeks ago at this point. No, probably about a week or so. Might have been 2 weeks actually, because we've had that book for a minute. So yeah, I think this has to do with the Shazam Who Laughs. I guess that's what they're calling them. I'm not even sure, but Black Adam deals with them, which I know that actually the character has a book this week, that Shazam character that neither one of us read. So if you're interested, go check it out. Next.
There's a couple of things coming to DC Universe, the app, in during November 2019. Chief amongst them is the Harley Quinn animated series, which is going to debut at the end of the month, November 29th. And the Titans series is going to run through the end of November, again, ending on November 29th. The one thing that's supposed to leave is the Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero animated movie, which is scheduled to be removed by the end of the day, November 1st. So it should be gone already.
Yes.
Which is a shame. That's the I remember talking about the recent events in Detective Comics with Mr. Freeze, and it seemed like they they had resolved the Nora Freeze situation a certain way in the Sub-Zero movie. Next thing you know, It's kind of back to square one in Detective Comics, but
Right. So, which you saying that it kind of feels like, well, since that's already out there, I guess they don't need this movie anymore. So they took it out.
exactly. It's like, yeah, we're not going to have any conflicting continuity here.
So that's kind of fun. I don't think that's the actual reason, but who even knows? But yeah, there's some other stuff. The Bookwise is also going to be on the service, so you can go check that out. Speaking of what's coming to Marvel Unlimited in November 2019, which is a bunch of books, because all they do is books and no video type stuff. So you can go check out the list of stuff, including some of the Image stuff is going to be on there. So yeah, you can go check that out. Next.
Apparently, a whole bunch of people dressed up as Spider-Man and invaded UNC Chapel Hill and got their pictures taken all around the campus.
Yeah, so this was developing the day of, if not before the day before we recorded, which was happened to be Halloween anyway. Because I do remember seeing this show up on Twitter, but we wasn't really sure what was going on. And now we've come to find out that it was an event that was organized by Henry McDonald, a senior member of the university's chapter of Sigma Chi fraternity, who wanted to celebrate Halloween. So that's why you saw a bunch of folks rolling around on Spidey. And I'm sure there's probably was at the very least one or two of the pointing Spider-Man themes. There had to been.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. And most notably, they were around the library. So I guess, I don't know. It's not ESU, but whatever. Anok Yai, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, took Halloween by storm at Heidi Klum's costume party. So if you're watching the video, you can see the video of Anok Yai's pretty decent storm costume. Some have been saying that she should be, of course, as tends to happen, she should be Storm, because I think there was also someone else that did a Storm thing that some folks on Twitter were saying they should give some props to, and probably a movie too, I guess. I don't know. So you can see some pictures of her preparation for her costuming there. So like I said, not a bad thing, not a bad job. And some pictures from the Halloween for the costume. So I'm assuming, is that Bayonetta she's supposed to be at? Not her, but anyway, that's whatever. So yeah, good stuff. Next up.
The Yondu book that came out today, this week actually, is described as No Country for Old Men meets The Nice Guys in Space by the book's writer.
Sure. I have gone on record saying I do not like the MCU's version of Yondu, or the fact that they have
incorporated him into the
book. Yeah. So, and I haven't read this issue because I wanted to see if actually the classic version of Yondu actually does show up, or whatever the case may be. But I'll find out at some point. Sometimes you just got to know. A multi-generational mutant team. We kind of already talked about this, but yeah. A multi-generational mutant team assembles in Dawn of X New Mutants. Again, we've already talked about that book. It's good stuff. There's some preview pages for said issue if you've not checked it out already.
All right. The next story is also something we spoke about earlier, in that X-Force teased a dangerous new threat to the X-Men. So this week's issue of X-Force definitely did that.
Right, which it seems like a dangerous old enemy at some point, even though they didn't go by a name because they just felt familiar. One of them actually looked like a version of Weapon X. But again, they never did name this stuff. The name of the people who invaded Ireland. So we'll find that out, I'm sure, soon. Marvel action. Spider-Man's Venom will temper savagery with humor and disgust. So I guess that's this week's well, this is basically an article with Delilah S. Dawson, who's been doing those Marvel action Spider-Man books, I guess, or who's doing something So apparently, next week's Marvel Action Spider-Man will introduce Venom. I have not been reading any of those Marvel Action books, but we do have them. I don't know. They're like all ages books, if I'm not mistaken. So, but apparently it says there's a trio of Spideys who's going to end up going up against Venom starting next week. So there you go. Next.
Donny Cates and Megan Hutchison got married. Congratulations to them. Megan Hutchison is a artist for Rockstars, a book called Rockstars, maybe.
I guess so, yeah.
And they got married last Thursday in a ceremony in Italy. And an addition to their cake was a Venom bride on, I guess, as the cake topper.
Yes. And I guess that's supposed to be Donny Cates holding the flowers. As far as that part of the song, it's a good looking topper. So, it also says that Cates and Hutchison are working on a creator-owned project scheduled to launch on 2020. So, cool. Excuse me. Patriot Garrison details revealed for Marvel Realm of Champions. So this is the upcoming mobile game by Kablam. It's not Kablamo, but it's Kabam. Excuse me. And which is basically, I think, concepts of champions with Harry Potter style houses, I guess. The short way, and one of the houses would be Patriot Garrison, led by Peggy Carter, Captain America. And this article gives details into said house. So again, we're getting more, a little bit more about, and I think there's even a video that goes along with it, that talks about it. So we get a little bit more information about the game that is coming, I believe, next year.
Alrighty. Next up, Hot Toys has announced a new Spider-Man figure based on the video game. The 6th scale figure features Spider-Man in the negative suit seen in Marvel Spider-Man, which was released in 2018 for the PlayStation 4.
And still a great game. And I still never understand the whole shoe thing. How in the world are they wall crawling in shoes? This has come up a few different times, and it still bugs me. But hey, it's a good looking toy. Based off of a suit that I don't think I have ever used. And it comes with a bunch of stuff, like a spider drone, which is featured prominently and a base. So if you're interested in that, go for it. It is some money. Next.
This is you.
Oh, artist gives cell-shaded paint makeovers to Transformers toys to give them a classic, cool look. So let's see. Got some awesome photos from Instagrammer Lek Custom Toys, who basically paints over old G1 Transformers figures. Looks good from some. If you're watching the video, you can see some of the pictures. Like, this is some pretty cool stuff. They look, like I said, they basically take the toys and just make them look shell shaded like the cartoons, or like a version of the cartoons. There's one for Prime, Megatron, the Jets, Stars, Soundwave, etc. So cool stuff. It's cool stuff. You can go check out the aforementioned Instagram account if you are so inclined into checking that out. Next.
Alrighty, next up, Hasbro has revealed 2 more Power Rangers in their Lightning Collection Wave 4 figures. So good on you, folks who are Power Rangers fans.
So yes, you see here, I believe this is SPD Red Ranger, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not sure who this other one is, but I do know the first one is SPD. So, that's Beast Morphers. That's right. Cyber Blizzard. Oh, right. That's right. Because I just saw a little bit of this recently. So there's SPD Red Ranger and the Beast Morphers Cyber Villain Blaze. So you can go check that out. Legion co-creator Bill Sienkiewicz on art, his new book, and why he doesn't just superhero movies. I mean, I think there's an obvious reason why he wouldn't. But so this is an article talking to the iconic artist about his work and his new he's got a new art book coming out. So you can go check that out and check out the article. Dude, 61, been going around for apparently for 40 years according to this article. So you know, the man's been around. I like this Jimi Hendrix that they featured on this article. It's cool looking. Next up.
Apparently during this past month's Inktober challenge, writer artist Dan Scotty reimagined wrestler and supposed actor John Cena as the Spirit, and to some people it apparently kind of works.
Yeah, I've saw some of these images. I'm like, sure, I can kind of see it, I guess. But you know, a Spirit is not a character I don't have much of an affinity for, so I wasn't caring that much about. But what?
Fantasy points.
Oh, as Agent 70's still in the throes of his fantasy football picks. So yeah, that's the thing that happened as opposed to the regular Inktober stuff. So cold beans. Next up. A visual festival for book nerds, librarians, and fans of graphic novels, sci-fi, and fantasy. So basically, Library Con happened yesterday, the 6th. So this is kind of old news at this point. But basically what it was as the name suggests, it was a virtual convention where I guess if you registered and you watched the proceedings. They had a bunch of panels and stuff going on. I've seen some stuff come from the panel or from a couple of people that were going to be at said thing, but I didn't really see much else from it. So I don't know. I don't think there's any news that came from it. But there was, apparently there were some people there, and like DC was there, Boom Studios, IDW, Viz, and Dark Horse, and a few other folks were there. So I assume a good time was had by all. Next.
Alrighty. Billy Batson goes full horror in The Infected, King Shazam. Wasn't this out this week?
That was the book that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, that is that neither one of us read that came out this week. So yeah.
Right. So it's a standalone story tie-in to Batman Superman's Infected storyline, which is going on in that series right now. So
yeah. So there you go. Wolverine #1 is an oversized issue featuring 2 separate stories because Lord knows people can't get enough of Wolverine, for God's sakes.
Snickety snicked.
Yeah, sure.
To quote Jason Mewes.
Exactly. So yeah, this was a interview with Benjamin Percy at CBR. So you can go check that part out, and he kind of goes into what the book is going to entail. Or if you just want to be surprised when the book comes out, whenever that happens soon, then you can just wait. It's not an interview actually, but it's just an article that says that.
Mm-hmm.
But it does link to an article that he did have with them. I mean, with an interview he had with them. Next.
X-Force #1 kills redacted. So we're not talking about that, and we're not talking about spoilers because I discussed I discussed things around this subject earlier.
Yes, we did. So yeah, we know basically. Hey, guess what? Somebody gets killed. I mean, it wouldn't be booked if it didn't happen to somebody at some point. So, but who it is, you have to find out for yourself.
It is an X-Force title after all.
Well, yeah, and it's definitely an X-Men title because somebody has to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Even with everything we said earlier. So. Next up, Marvel Champions, the card game, is out, folks, as of November the 1st. Pardon me. That is the card game that we talked about, some time ago. And I am looking forward to playing this whenever I get a chance and some people to play it with. So basically what it is like you, up to 1 to 40 people, select a hero. And You got a bunch, and you got a deck of cards or you got a stack of cards to go with that said hero, and you also have a mission to take down, a bad guy and to do some stuff before the bad guys, triumph, basically. So I've seen stuff about this game, and it looks cool, and I can't wait to one day hopefully play it. Next.
All right. Grant Morrison's cruelest version of Superman ever is in Green Lantern Black Stars #2. That's out this week, right?
No, the first one came out this week.
Oh, the first one came out this week. Okay, so heads up, Grant Morrison is turning up the cruel on Superman.
Grant Morrison's being Grant Morrison.
All right.
That's probably the plainest way to say it. So yeah, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't sure if anybody was going to check out the book, and I didn't think either one of us was going to get to, but it was a curiosity.
I was about to say, not in a big week like this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I might check it out at some point. I'm not the biggest Green Lantern fan, but I don't know, whatever. One writer's struggle, last but not least, with diabetes led to him create horror comic Sweetheart. So this March, Action Labs Entertainment's Danger Zone imprint will publish Sweetheart, a horror story inspired by the writer's own personal struggle with diabetes. The story serves as both a vessel for my worst fears about these monsters, quote unquote, as well as my optimistic views of what we can do about them. This is from Dylan Gilbertson, the writer of said book, said in a statement. Like boogeymen that could follow them their entire lives, Sweetheart began as a thinly veiled analogy for my life with diabetes that grew to represent a number of chronic health, psychological, and personal issues many people deal with every day. So in Gilbertson's story, a young girl named Maddie has her own insecurities about a chronic illness, and it's borne out in a horrific story. So if any of that has been said interests you, you can go check that out at your local comic book store or online somewhere.
Nice.
If you're a comic book probably got it, I guess. So, and that, folks, is the end of the comic book news. There's a couple of variant covers and some stuff in the clickbait section you can go check out at your leisure. Can we get one more ad read, please, sir?
All right, last ad read of the night is for Busted Tees. This episode of the Comic Book Chronicles is sponsored by Busted Tees, your home for funny, awesome, cool t-shirts that are sure to get your friends' attention. Busted Tees puts many of their popular t-shirt designs on sale each week. Choose from several eye-catching t-shirts inspired by pop culture. These are cleverly themed t-shirts inspired by movies, video games, TV shows, comic books, and geek culture, and much more. They're all on sale. To help keep our podcast free, order from Busted Tees by going to cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link. Click on the Busted Tees banner, and then shop for awesome t-shirts. Busted Tees through cspn.us. Do it today.
And as we come to an end of another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles, we'd like to thank each and every one of you folks for coming out, as we tend to do. Love each and every one of y'all, except for some of y'all, because some of y'all are just crazy folk. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. Get it together, people. Jesus. For myself, Roddykat, as Agent 7 looks at me like, what? What are you talking about? Anyway, for myself, Roddykat on Twitter, you can find me there. You can also find me at News Nurse Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. You can find Agent 70 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find PCN __ dirt on Twitter. You can also find him at Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and his umbrella sites there in. Whoa, what happened there? And the Osiris of this is one Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter, which is CB Comic Book Chronicles account on Twitter. Try to say that after all of that. DClick Nation, that's DKLIQNATION, DClickNation.com also, and the comic book resources where he is over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can find Agent 70 at whatever draft, fantasy draft page he's looking at right now.
I'm watching Thursday Night Football, folks.
You
We're
gotta
all looking on with bated breath as the game is coming down to the wire, and we have some points that still have to be scored for our respective fantasy teams.
Yes, and I guess if you want to find out more about that, you will have to go to his Twitter account. But if you want to find out more about this here podcast, you want to come back here. First you want to go to Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or the Coast of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page to get the past shows. If you want to catch up with the show in the current, you want to come back here next Thursday, 9:30ish p.m. where we start to record on the YouTubes. Thank you, Livestream, for giving us something. I don't know what to say about that. And we definitely return next week because I don't think we have anything going on.
Right. I don't think there's any movie protocols for another month.
Not for another month or so. So tune in next week, folks. We will be back. Same bat time, same bat channel, same sparkling personalities, same fantasy football shenanigans. More than likely. This has been... I'm drawing this out. I don't know why I'm doing that. Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Good night, everybody.
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe